Nation of Fitin10, it is day 17. Day 17, and I'm on my last day here in Florida, beautiful Florida, which sucks because I don't want to go because it's so beautiful. It's super warm and humid, but the temperature, I don't know what it is. It's like, it can be 90 or 95 here. It's just different than at home. At home when it's hot, it feels like really hot, but here it just doesn't feel that hot. I don't know why. Anyways, I'll be home soon, but I do have to do a short quarantine, so I won't be right back in class. I've got to do a short quarantine even after doing 3 COVID tests. I've got to do 3 COVID tests. I've got to do one before I leave, one when I get back home right at the airport, and then another one a couple days later. So short quarantine. I will be back in class. So basically Wednesday, because Wednesday will be my first day home because I'm going to get back tomorrow night, I'll put up the Calendly link so you guys can book, yes, that's right, your Calendly link, so you can book your second scan. That's right, your second scan is coming up. So I'll set it up for, obviously your scan's not going to happen this week, but it's going to happen the week after, okay? So basically from day 22 to 28, somewhere in there, we're going to do your next scan, okay? So I'll put up the calendar for that, so stay tuned for that. Also, yesterday I talked about, answered a question. If I understood the question correctly, it was, basically, do people who have, higher amount of fat mass, basically a higher body fat percentage, they have an easier time losing fat versus somebody who is leaner? Wouldn't it be easier for them to lose more percentage of fat mass than somebody who's leaner? And so I gave some reasonings why both sides are sort of at an advantage and a disadvantage. But one thing I didn't mention either, that I forgot to mention, was that typically people who carry more body fat, they've gone through a period obviously where they've overconsumed, or they're regularly overconsuming. Obviously, if they're carrying that fat right now, that overconsumption has carried through. Of course, I don't know where you're coming from. Maybe you lost some weight or whatnot. But the point is when you have more fat than, say, somebody else, there is a reason for that, right? And that reason is because there was a higher energy intake than there was output, right? Generally, that is more often than not, it's partially going to be due to exercise, but more often than not, it's due to diet. So my point here is that typically, and I fall into this category, by the way, I fall in this category actually quite badly, which is why I measure my food. Typically people who tend to hold more weight, food is an outlet for them. Food is an area of comfort for those people. Like I said, I'm one of them. So this can be a point, this can make it harder for somebody who is carrying more body fat than somebody who's not, because, now we're kind of taking that outlet away. All right, but obviously I try to make this as easy as I can because you see that I've given you plenty of food, but I can't really eat perhaps some of those foods that we might find the most comfort in. And I will say it again, I'm one of those people. I have a sweet tooth. I like to overeat, even just good food, even just good wholesome food. I like to eat. Many times after I eat, I'm still hungry, and I ask myself, okay, do you feel like eating, or are you still hungry? Even though I'm abiding by obviously certain rules that I have, I have a certain amount of macros and calories, with a little bit of flexibility, of course. But I have those boundaries, and so I can't go over those boundaries, so that's what stops me. But if I didn't have those boundaries, for sure I'd eat more. For sure, I would because I like to eat. So anyways, my point here is that can be a point of hardship for those people who start off with more body fat. So again, it doesn't mean that if you're carrying more body fat, doesn't mean you can't do it or anything like that. It just simply means that it might be harder for you emotionally, psychologically, to abide by an eating regime, right? Okay, or maybe not. Okay, sometimes it's just a lack of education or ignorance or just not knowing, right? So, okay, more of your feedback. How am I doing for time? We're almost 5 minutes. Wow. Okay. All right, so this person writes, I was about 98% compliant with nutritional strategy I had a day where I had slightly lower calories and slightly higher fat. Preparing multiple meals in advance would save me a lot of time. I felt myself crunching to get the calories in towards the end of the day. Yeah, you've got a plan. You've got a plan. I told you can't wing it. You've got to plan out your stuff, right? You've got to plan out all your meals in advance. Name something specific you need help with. Controlling my heart rate. I was all over the place when I was doing my interval training. My Fitbit showed me different scores than the exercise bike, and I'm not sure which one to follow. Follow your Fitbit. Just follow your Fitbit, okay? It's gonna be much more accurate than the bike. Is there anything you'd like me to cover in this week's video series? A session on some supplements that you recommend or don't recommend. Brackets, creatine, fish oil, multivitamins, or whatever. Okay, I should do some better planning for this, but I can tell you some things right off the bat, which I think are good, which I use. But I'm gonna just remind you that it all starts off with diet. All of this stuff here, while it is valuable, the things that you mentioned and other things, they are valuable. Ultimately, it's gonna come down to, lifestyle habits and diet, okay? Or I guess diet could fall into lifestyle habits. But essentially what I'm saying is exercise and eating well, okay? Eating well, however we want to, categorize that. But essentially what it means is obviously making good choices like I'm trying to influence or I'm trying to convey to you throughout this challenge, okay? Which is why, one of the reasons why I really am encouraging you guys to eat real, whole foods as much as possible, okay? Minimally processed foods doesn't mean all processed foods are bad. Certainly there's many processed foods which are totally acceptable. But in terms of supplements here, okay, let's talk about a multivitamin mineral. If you're looking for a good quality multivitamin mineral, you want to make sure that you get one that's bioavailable. There are different forms or different extractions of vitamins that you can get, and there's also minerals. We want to make sure that they're bound to the right or appropriate whatever you want to call it, cofactor or binding agent. And this is going to allow it to be more bioavailable, right? More accessible to your body, okay? There's no sense in taking something if it just goes right through us, right? Well, that's not totally true. I mean, fiber would be an exception, right? But obviously when it comes to this, you want your body to utilize it, right? You don't want to just simply excrete it. So we want to take a look at that. I take a vitamin called Primer right now, Magnum Primer. It's pretty good. I'm going to be getting in actually another one very soon here, which I think is even better. If you're taking a multivitamin and it's in one pill, I think you're wasting your time, because if they're bound to the right things and they're in sufficient amounts, you're just going to get, you got to put it into multiple pills. You just can't fit it into one, okay? Unless the pill's going to be like, a sandwich or something, okay? Well, I'm exaggerating, obviously. A fish oil, yes, this would be really, really good. Just make sure the fish oil is sourced from things like smaller, animals or fish, like things like mackerel and sardines and this type of a fish, a smaller fish, just so we get less of the heavy metals in the oil potentially. Creatine, I'm just going through these ones since you mentioned them because actually they're all ones that I would recommend. Creatine, well, maybe I'll talk about creatine tomorrow because we're at 8:45, so I'll do that tomorrow. Let's get to the message of the day. Message of the day is this: you are a recent reflection of your past. You are just a recent reflection of your past. Now, when I say this, I am saying, specifically when it comes to your diet, okay? So what is your recent past? Last 6 months. Really? You can make a big change in 6 months. You can gain a ton of weight in 6 months. You can lose a ton of weight in 6 months. And so you've heard me say this before when it comes to diet, but this is the whole reason why a diet has to be lifestyle based. You just will not get away with doing some crazy diet, losing a ton of weight, and then expecting to go back to your previous, lifestyle or something that took you away from what helped you. Okay, you've got to find something that is sustainable and reasonable. And this is why I give you guys one of the reasons, not the only reason, one of the reasons why I give you as many calories as I do, because certainly if you ate less, you would lose more weight. but it's not going to be sustainable, and you're not going to feel good, not at least not over time. Anyways, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here, but the point is you have to find a system that works for you long term. And again, when it comes to measuring food and doing all the stuff that you're doing, you don't necessarily have to do that coming out of the challenge. But the reason that we're doing it is because we only have 7 days and we have a specific goal, and so we have to be kind of aggressive about it. But if you take the main pillars of the diet that I give you and you apply it after this, you're going to do quite well. If you want to keep measuring, then obviously you're going to be that much more accurate and exactly where you want to be and the change that you need to make. If you're trying to lose more weight or gain weight or whatever, okay? So just remember, you are a recent reflection of your past. So whatever diet you choose, it's got to be sustainable, right? It's got to be sustainable. All right, positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, for the love of God, give some gratitude. I'll talk to you all very soon. See you guys.